has a policy of no imported EVs can be priced lower than 100,000 ringgit. And this was put in place in order to protect the market share of the under 100,000, basically our Proton and Pro 2 lah. So you cannot go any lower than 100,000. But more or less, we have 2,600 as of July this year. We're targeting 10,000 by end of next year. So you can calculate how many we need to roll out between now and then, about 400 per month or something like that.
Will it be a profitable business? Instead of fiat?
That's a very good question. We can see around the world that people, the charging point operators are seeing it as a struggle to get a return if they were only to sell kilowatt hours, which is energy. So because you're already competing with people who can charge at home. Yes. Because when people charge at home, the equipment is less costly, the tariff at home is less costly. Then you are competing with that. And so when you are trying to sell just energy, it's a struggle for them to make money.
Datuk Shahrol was the president and CEO of Malaysia Petroleum Resources Corporation and is currently the president of the Malaysian Electric Vehicle Owners Club. Datuk Shahrol started this club in May 2019 when he and his group of friends realized that Malaysia was falling behind in terms of EV adoption. They also noticed that some EV users were struggling due to the lack of infrastructure. Thus, the club was formed to provide EV users with accurate and beneficial information along with unbiased point of view from users with no vested interest in policymaker to encourage and promote the EV segment. To date, the club has approximately 400 members along with a free-to-join Facebook group of 85,000 individuals. Hi guys, I'm Weng. I'm the host for the Mind of the CEO where we share about startup business and also innovations. So today we have Datuk Shahrol, who is the president of Malaysian's Electric Vehicles Owners Club. Thanks so much for your time. So the first questions will be like, because based on the research that I think, right, the MyEVOC, yes, right, officially began in 2019 to support the EV users and promotes the adoption of EV in Malaysia. Yeah. So can you tell us more about this? Why do you start this initiative?
Sure. Yeah. Okay, firstly, I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you for inviting me. We started MyEVOC in 2019 because at that time we saw that the EV adoption in Malaysia wasn't really going very well. Even though I had participated in the government's low carbon mobility blueprint discussions, and this is a government initiative to sort of map out how Malaysia's EV adoption will help towards decarbonization of our transport sector and so on and so forth. So the workshops actually started in 2017, 2018, and I felt that there was not enough momentum at the time, and the very, very few Malaysian EV users, we were struggling. There were basically no charging stations outside of KL. The support towards EV ecosystem was virtually non-existent. So in 2019, we got together over Roti Canai and Teh Tarik. And so we decided, okay, let's try and get ourselves organized, register a club, and present a unified voice that looks after the interests of the users.
So the next question will be why EV in the very first place? There are so many things that you can do. I'm pretty sure, but why EV in the very first place?
Well, EV because at that time I was driving an EV myself. I got my first EV in 2017, and I saw that this is going to be the future. This is the way that we are going to decarbonize our land transport. And I saw that this is an area that I was already interested in. I have friends who are also interested in it. So it naturally snowballed, the momentum built up from there.
Now, what is the biggest challenges currently facing the adoption of EVs in Malaysia, and how is the government addressing this obstacle?
Well, the momentum has certainly picked up since 2022 when the government introduced the full tax exemption for all imported EVs. So we saw from the registration numbers that the number jumped from about 12 times to from 256 to over 3,000 in 2022. And then in 2023, that number quadrupled. So we saw that the momentum is there. One of the big challenges, though, that we hear from users who are keen to go into EVs but are held back by the price. The government has a policy of no imported EVs can be priced lower than 100,000 ringgit. And this was put in place in order to protect the market share of the under 100,000, basically our Proton and Petrol lah. So you cannot go any lower than 100,000, and people are looking for more affordable EVs because the mindset is such that now, given that our charging infrastructure or public charging infrastructure is still growing, the mindset is I want to keep my petrol car. But I want to have a second EV car because I know that this is cool. I know that this is good for city driving, but I don't want to spend so much. Right? And so for a lot of people spending over 100,000 for an EV car, a second car is too much. So that I think is one of the biggest challenges facing EV adoption in Malaysia. What the government is doing is that they have been working closely with both Proton and Petroleum to accelerate their locally assembled or locally manufactured EVs. And Proton, I believe, has committed to starting to sell something by the end of this year.
Pure EV or it's a hybrid? Oh.
They call it the EMAS 7, I believe. And that is, depending on who you talk to, is based on a model that's already sold in China. But I suspect it is just going to be something that is based on that model but heavily modified for our market. So end of this year, they're going to start selling it. Perudo is saying end of next year.
So the price will be hundreds and lowers?
Nobody really knows, but I suspect that Proton will try and price it close to the 100,000 mark because what they are starting with, this Proton EMAS 7, is going to be a relatively big car. It's not going to be a Axia or type. It's going to be more the X70 type. So they are going to start there. So it's probably going to be around 100. If they're going to go below 100, it's probably not going to be much lower than 100. Probably like 90 plus or 80. But really, this is just my guess.
Do you think that to speed up the adoption rate of EVs, right? The price of the car should be lower than hundreds so that more people will get to access to this EV to try. So it has to be cheap but affordable.
Yeah, it has to be. The different models has to be available for people with different purposes, right? Because your typical car buyer in Malaysia also, some of them are looking for MPV, some of them are looking for SUV, some of them are looking for just a small car for their children. So there needs to be a variety. We can see in terms of price, the segments, segment A, segment B, C, right? So the prices will also follow those. Right now in Malaysia, just because the initial pioneers in the the manufacturing side are all focusing on the high end. So you have a lot of BMWs, Volvos, and Mercedes, and those are kind of saturated already, that market. The 300, 400,000. So we now see the need for more like the 100,000, 80,000, 60,000. And so that will happen over the next few years. Now, the main worry is as those happen, the growth trajectory of the EVs in Malaysia will increase. Charging.
The Chinese station is always the
public charging infrastructure. We are seeing that even today, along the highways, during busy periods, during the weekends, there's already queues. So the government needs to focus a lot more on the highway charging. And not only that, though, they need to also help the users who live in high rises to be able to
apartments, condos, right?
Correct.
Yes. So, do you think that EV is just like a fad, a fad, or it is really something that is going to happen, or it's just like Elon Musk do those marketing to hype things up so that we're gonna spend more, or that's really the future of automobile industry?
Well, it's very, very clear that taking a few steps back, that look, we need to do something about climate change. Climate change is caused by primarily GHG, greenhouse gases, that is being released into the atmosphere. And the two biggest sources of greenhouse gases are, one is industry or power production, and number two, transport.
Transport.
Yeah. So in Malaysia specifically, about half of the greenhouse gases are emitted by our power sector. About close to 30%, high 20s is emitted by transport. Now, the power sector is a different story. We already have a plan to go net zero by 2050. So we are not planting up more coal-fired power plants. We are going more for solar and renewables. Now, land transport is something that we needed to electrify. So that's why the way forward is to electrify land transport to stop burning petrol and diesel in combustion engine. And the path to do that is through EVs.
How does the Malaysia EV infrastructure, I mean, as you mentioned just now, the charging station, right, have to be increased? So compared to other Southeast Asian countries, and what development do we expect that we can see in the near future, say like 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. So it's kind of difficult to compare with our neighbors. For example, with Singapore, it's a city state. Their ratio of charging to EVs is actually pretty good. Although the feedback that we have from the users over there is that they need more. And the main problem they have is high rises, where they need to share public charging infrastructure, where you come back from work or you come back, you plug in, and then sometime 3, 4, 5 hours later, you need to move your car. And that's like midnight.
Very mafan.
Yeah, correct. Very mafan. So the issue is that they need more charging infrastructure over there. Now, in Thailand, they have awesome government support starting from like 2019 already. They have a committee chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister that looks at things holistically. They look at it all from an industrial perspective. We need investors. From a charging infrastructure, we need to build. And so they had the regulators for the electricity industry to actually work with the charging point operators and even in some cases they themselves go into the business of setting up charging infrastructure. So Thailand, in my opinion at least, is that the coverage along their country is better, even though they are a much bigger country than Malaysia is. And in the city also it's not bad. Malaysia, we have about, currently, we target to have 10,000 by the end of next year.
Charging stations.
Public charging stations. Although the definition, the government's calling it charging bays, which is kind of different because charging station, there's a lot of terminology here. A charging station essentially is how many EVs you can charge at the same time. Bays can be 3 bays, but 2 points only. Because bay is charging bay.
Just a bay, it's just a place to charge.
Parking lot lah.
Parking lot.
For you to charge. So, but more or less, we have 2,600 as of July this year. We're targeting 10,000 by end of next year. So you can calculate how many we need to roll out between now and then, about 400 per month or something like that.
Is it possible at the very first place?
At the present place, I mean, everybody is kind of skeptical and so am I. The problem with that is that we see that the easy spots are already taken, 2,600, right? Where you can have the owner of the building happy to host, or the owner of the land is happy to host. The location is not out of the way, it's strategic enough such that EV users are keen to use it. And number 3, most importantly, is that there's enough available electricity from our electricity utility. Right. So the easy ones are all pretty much taken already. So now it's the hard ones that take time for to lay new cables for the power, to get permission from the local authorities to even construct these charging stations. And now we see more and more processes and regulations being put into place, because when you want to put a charging station, you need to get like permission and approvals first from the local authority, and then the landowner, and then you need to get to apply for additional power from TND. And then if TND, the power in the substation is not enough, then you go through the whole process where they need to lay new cables and then ask permission from the local authority.
Very big confusions.
Yes, and then to get permission from the landowner for the right of way for the cables. And then that's not including the license you need from the Energy Commission. So you can see is that if you build a flow chart of the kind of stuff that charging point operators need, you need like a whole department just to manage that.
Is this also one of the reasons why the private is not going in?
Well, they are currently in Malaysia because everybody sees that this is the future and the demand is going to be there. And at last count, there were at least 15 to 20 charging point operators in Peninsular Malaysia, and all of them are private.
Do they need a license to become a?
You don't need a license to become a charging point operator as a company. You need a license for the charging points themselves.
To set things up.
The EVCS, the
EVCS.
charging system needs a license from the Energy Commission. And the license is counted by the number of ports and the power.
Will it be a profitable business? In the sense of,
That's a very good question. We can see around the world that people the charging point operators are seeing it as a struggle to get a return if they were only to sell kilowatt hours, which is energy. So because you're already competing with people who can charge at home.
Yes.
Because when people charge at home, their equipment is less costly, the tariff at home is less costly. Then you are competing with that. And so when you are trying to sell just energy, it's a struggle for them to make money. So a lot of people are exploring ways, how do we in tandem work with, for example, F&B, work with services.
Work with F&B, like set up a charging station in front of the restaurants or
Correct. So the money is earned by selling F&B and you cross-subsidize.
What do you mean cross-subsidize?
Cross-subsidize meaning that maybe the premise subsidize the electricity because they know that when people come and charge, they come and stay and they pay money for F&B.
So they'll makan there, lepak there, when they...
So there's a synergy there lah. So one of the things that we would like our market to try and explore is that, for example, shopping mall like Starling, right? We can see that it's very competitive. There are many other shopping malls around the area. There's Sri Damansara, there's I think there's another mall nearby Atria, and there's a huge one Utama just down the road. So how do you try and draw people in? How do you specialize and try and attract people? One of the ways is to actually maybe offer charging. And then when you offer charging, maybe you don't want to have it free, right? Because then there'll be too much cost for you and it like opens up to abuse and so on and so forth. But make it like very minimal charges, something that is cheaper. Let's say at home you are paying 50 cents kilowatt hour. Maybe over here you can say it's 40 cents per kilowatt hour. And then people can come here and then start exploring what F&B do you have. So then people will start making plans to come here for lunch, breakfast, tea, dinner.
I think it's a good idea if like you spend like X amount of money and then you get like free charge here.
Oh, that, yeah, right. Yeah. Or it maybe even like you can have a membership plan where every fifth time you come over and you get free charging or whatever it is. So it's an opportunity, I think, for people to explore synergies between different business models. And for that, I feel like there's not enough conversation happening between the owners of places such as the Starling with the charging point operators. Right now, it's mostly like, the charging point operators are seeing like, what's the benefit? Where can I install? Can I talk to the more owner, and the more owner sees it all as a cost to them rather than a way to invest to attract more customers.
I think because they can't really see the direct benefits that we will bring to their business. That's why. So, I mean, based on your observations, are those business owners now, are they open to this kind of new concept of EVs,
Not enough. Not enough new owners are not, because number one is at first they have to really understand what EV is. And I think penetration in Malaysia is less than 2% still. So the outside of the small group of people, there are still a lot of people who are not even aware what EVs are capable of, what EVs need. So people still think, it takes hours to charge. I cannot take it outstation. All these limitations are there. So there's still a lot of work to be done to create the awareness. And I think that unfortunately, this is like you're leaving money on the table, honestly, because the business owners, if they understand it more and they spend more time understanding the kind of demographics that EV owners are right now, there are 30,000 full EVs in Malaysia registered right now today. So, and there are at least 30 to 40,000 plug-in hybrids. So there's 60,000 and most of them are in the Klang Valley. Or, in major urban areas, but most are in the Klang Valley. And most of these guys are the guys who can afford to buy cars that are 100,000 or more. So it's a demographic that is willing to try new things. There is a demographic that can afford it. They have friends and family. Why aren't you going after this
Group of
So
segments.
it's the sophistication, I think, of businesses in Malaysia is not quite there yet. And this is a good opportunity for us to gain more sophistication and in the same breath, even like elevate the business model, the thinking, how do you attract customers? And these are the things that nobody else in the world has figured it out. They are trying to figure it out. We have an opportunity here.
I mean, who, I would say responsible, but who should actually bring more awareness, to this kind of, to this business owner that, hey, this is a great opportunities, why you should, try this.
Well, by right is the businesses ought to be doing it themselves.
Discover.
I mean, is it because the businesses feel like they are comfortable where they are and they don't need to do more, or are they operating on the false assumption that, like the point that you brought up earlier, this EV is just a fact. 2 years from now, it's not going to be here anymore. They need to be doing the education, gaining the education themselves. We exist. MyEVOC exists. We have another more industry-oriented organization called MyZEVA, Zero Emission Vehicle Association, that has members counting the CPOs, the charging point operators, the car manufacturers, the utility, and all that. The information is there. But in the end, should we, the users, be pushing this information? Not really. I mean, we can state what we want. So we vote with our wallets, right? So, for example, you have KLCC that has Surya KLCC as a mall with a lot of charging stations. So we like to go there because it's easy. You can charge, but it's still not that cheap, because parking is expensive and RM1 per kilowatt hour. So, using channels such as this podcast, we hope that there are more people who trigger their thoughts in the beginning. Maybe there's something here. Let's explore with the CPO. Let's figure out whether we can have a joint marketing or a joint initiative. Just try it out for 6 months and see whether your sales numbers increase.
So just wondering, what will happen to this business owner that do not adopt, to EV, say maybe the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, they probably won't suffer too much 3 to 5 years because, again, the rate of adoption in Malaysia is not as quick as some of the other markets in, let's say, Europe or China. There's still time. The important thing is that if they get ahead of the curve, then they are able to profit earlier from it. So people who are late to the game right now, I say the next 3 to 5 years, there's going to be some consequence, but it won't be too bad for them. I mean, that's another reason why I think that a lot of businesses are taking a wait and see. It's not that urgent. Yeah, because Malaysia, unlike I think other countries, we are not saying that by, like Singapore, for example, they're saying by 2040, no more petrol or diesel new vehicles.
So they're set.
Correct. Malaysia doesn't have such deadlines, so it's a bit very open-ended still. So that may be one of the factors why people are taking a wait and see attitude.
So what do you see the role of local automotive manufacturers playing in the growth of the EV market in Malaysia, and also how are they adapting to the global trends in EV?
Well, Malaysia, the local automotive manufacturing essentially is just two, right? Proton and Petroleum. And right now, their profits are good from manufacturing or assembling petrol-based vehicles because, again, it's at the lower end of the market. It's a very well-established, the technology is already mature, your manufacturing capability is very finely tuned for that. So there's a lot of profits to be made there. Now, the role they will play in moving forward is that they will start offering EVs in the segment A, segment B, the smaller cars, the ones that are better suited for city owned, and then they are less costly to run. Because EVs also, we have seen that if you compare with even our subsidized petrol price in Malaysia, if you if you calculate depending on the ratio of public and home charging, you can save up to from about 30 to 50% in just
By using
EVs. Yes, correct. Because it's just more efficient. Especially when you travel around town, the experience of some of our members, some of them even with solar at home, the cost of electricity is very, very cheap. It's 0 to 10 cent per kilowatt hour because they're generating their own electricity, right? So it's pretty much free to run your EV. Of course, you have the initial capex spend. So locally, I think they have a big role to play in also trying to get better government to have a better handle on the growth of charging infrastructure. I mean, we covered this earlier. Highway coverage and also high rise. So right now we are seeing a lot of trouble, a lot very mafan, as you said, to actually for someone who lives in a condo to try and get charging stations installed, because first you have to get the management board to agree, and some of them are like, one of the anecdotes I hear is, these are all retirees, old people who don't believe in EVs, so they believe that
it's very hard.
it's very hard, that mindset, right? And so this is, I think, like, again, maybe one of the things government can do a little bit more is that you created this low carbon mobility blueprint, and the low carbon mobility blueprint clearly spells out why this is good for the country. Lowers emissions, creates local industries. Why are you not talking about it more? Nobody at the ministerial level has mentioned low carbon mobility in a speech this year.
There are a lot of China EVs, that's coming into Malaysia, right? So we have like BYD, Xiaomi, and their car is so cheap but so nice as well.
Yeah.
How do you see like Malaysians look like Proton, compete with this sort of
It's going to be very hard. It's going to be very hard because historically, see, the Chinese government saw an opportunity like 15 years ago already when their country, I don't know whether you remember, like Beijing and Shanghai were really suffering from very bad air pollution. And so due to popular demand, and the government also realizes that, look, we have to clean up our air, but look, there's this opportunity for us to go into automotive manufacturing, because they realize also their middle class is growing. Everybody will want to have a car, everybody wants to have mobility. But they know that the combustion engine industry is dominated by the Japanese, by the Europeans, by the Americans. And they know that it's going to be tough for them to compete because they are the new kids on the block. But they saw an opportunity in new energy vehicles. They call it MEVs over there. And they didn't particularly zone down to just EVs. They opened up to fuel cell vehicles. They opened up to hybrid vehicles at that time. But they invested a lot of money in the basic research, battery research, the powertrain research, and they were open enough to say that, look, who's the leader in EVs in the world today? And back in 2011, 2012, 2015, Tesla was the number one at the time. Everybody else was kind of dabbling. Only Tesla went all in and said, okay, Tesla coming to our country. Tesla said, no, I got 100% own. I got to control my IP. I got to sell my cars directly. And that was unheard of in China at the time. You remember GM, American company, Volkswagen, German company, they were forced to partner with a local partner.
But Tesla do not want.
Tesla don't want, and Tesla was given that exemption. Tesla built the Shanghai Gigafactory, the second factory they built outside of Fremont, which is even, I think, earlier than the Austin and Germany factory. And that helped sort of give the EV industry in China a kick in the pants, because, you bring the best guy in the world in, right?
And they will learn everything.
Correct. So, and also their consumers, also suddenly they learn, the car can actually do this. How come this car cannot do? So that put a boost. Now the consumers are smarter. The consumers know what's available out there. Consumers start demanding it from other brands as well. So this is why you see now the Xiaomi cars, the Huawei cars, the BYD cars are amazing. And you look at the price, oh my God, how can we get so cheap?
Yes.
Because then they have invested so much in manufacturing capability, in very efficient factories, and of course, intense competition. People don't know, like in China, there are literally hundreds of EV only automotive companies. Some of them are not so good, and some of them are dying, like hi-fi, and a few are like mati already. But that's the intense competition that created such great products. And of course, there are skeptics that say, "Oh lah, cantik aja," but break down.
Use or not then.
But again, this is the evolution of the market, because whatever it is, like the latest BYD supercar is what the Tesla Roadster ought to be. I mean, Tesla Roadster, Elon Musk was saying this car will do 0 to 100 in like 1.1 second or whatever it is, but it's still vaporware. There's nothing that is starting to be produced, and our friend BYD has started to make the cars already and is launching it. So the competition there, the government support they have in China is amazing. Now, what role does Malaysia have to play? That's the question. In my mind, that it's very difficult for us to compete in terms of manufacturing just because we started up very late. We don't have scale. We need to find a niche that we can play, whether it be software, because EV is pretty much the value derived in an electric vehicle is all about software, the battery management, the infotainment, the user experience. And we can see already today that there's a lot of opportunities in terms of software. You see BYD cars, some of the Chinese brands, you open up the infotainment, or some of it you can laugh lah, because it's all direct translate. Right? From Mandarin. So is there an opportunity for us to really customize it, make it as good as, let's say, the Teslas or the BMWs, and maybe even add on that, localize it? So Malaysia is pretty good at software development. You know this. We have a lot of good software developers over here. We just need access to those guys. And this way, actually, even our government has a role to play. Right? Instead of just leaving it open, that understanding that, you bring technology, you teach our guys, you can say, okay, you have 2 years or 1 year even to show me a localized version of your software. And you're already forcing them to use local talent in certain ways, right? So, okay, in order to do this, then you must use 50% of local programmers. So you build up that expertise here. For example, one of the most important things for EV drivers is what we call route planning. So when you want to go, let's say from KL to something far, let's say Kota Baru, right? You want to be able to key in, okay, I want to go Kota Baru, my auntie's house over there, and the car should be able to tell you, okay, you right now have about 50% battery, you need to stop there, charge for 10 minutes, and then after that, you can go straight to your auntie's house. Tesla does this. In other countries, not yet in Malaysia, because they haven't turned on that function yet. But no other car can do it as well as Tesla currently.
So that because Tesla is connected with their own Tesla charging station, so they can detect where is the charging station and then how far you need to charge, before. Okay.
And then there's an app called a Better Route Planner, ABRP, that can do that on a phone. But it's still incomplete because the phone doesn't know how much battery your car has. And how much energy is your car consuming during the drive. So there needs to be a connection. So right now it's all kind of 2G where you can have a dongle put into your OBD, your car, and you will talk wirelessly to it. So it's kind of clunky, right? So look, huge opportunity for our local software guys.
It's a big problem for the EV users because we do not know where is the next stations.
Correct.
Stations.
And look, the market is going to grow, right? So again, this money on the table, I don't know why our guys are leaving it there.
Next one, how will Tesla decisions to withdraw its factory from Southeast Asia, impact the growth and development of the EV landscape in Malaysia?
Well, I think that 2 years ago, everybody in the EV world, especially Tesla, was very optimistic about the growth potential. And so they had plans to make factories everywhere. And I think we knew that, the Thais knew this, the Indonesians knew this. And so everybody was talking to Tesla to try to bring that in. Now, situation has changed a little bit. Interest rates have gone up. Sales have kind of slowed down a little bit. So now Tesla has decided to focus more on the self-driving, the robo-taxi, and AI. So how did this affect us? Well, number one is there was never really any concrete promise for Tesla to build a factory in Malaysia. The government, I think Datuk Shahrol put out a statement a few weeks ago that clearly articulated the 2 phases that they feel that they want to do for EV development in Malaysia in the first phase is to build the market. And Tesla's role was to help build the market. And how they did this was that number one, their direct selling model enabled their cars to be priced very attractively. When they first launched and they introduced the Model Y at 199,000, everybody was shocked. Everybody to duduk. As in like, wow, they can price it that cheaply, which is like almost like direct US price. You just convert. Normally, what our car market here say, oh, you take the UK price or the US price, you add a zero, right? But now it's actually you just do currency conversion, and that's the price. Everybody goes, oh, how do you do this? And that led to everybody else having to reduce their prices. So that's number one. Number two is that Tesla introduced also their charging network, superchargers, destination chargers, and now people can see and experience themselves how easy it is when you have a world-class charging network with a world-class software infrastructure. I mean, right now you go to a charging station also, charging station open up your app, the sun is bright, you cannot see it. And then, you turn on the charger and then you plug in and then it happens, right? Tesla, you just drive up to the supercharger, you done.
Settle.
The billing all done automatically. You're done, you go out and then boom, it pops out, this is how much it costs.
Very convenient.
Very convenient, no fuss, no muss. And very quick. So now users see that. I mean, this ties back to what I said earlier. Now the users are a little bit more educated, a little bit more sophisticated. Now they say, hey, how come the other CPO don't offer this? Create competition, right? And guess what? Charge recently launched this thing they called Auto Charge.
The cow,
which can almost exactly the same, but it's not as convenient because what you need to do the first time you plug in, you activate your Auto Charge, but subsequent charging sessions, you just plug and play. But this is exactly what I mean, is that when you show people what is possible, like, remember, before iPhone came out, people were happy with their Snake and
Nokia.
Correct.
3210, yeah.
Suddenly, like Steve Jobs come out, this is a piece of glass that can do all these things. People say, oh, this one bullshit lah, no good lah. But then when people start using it, hey, how come the other guys don't do this? So it's a very similar where the users and the consumers are now better educated. They have better expectation of what is really possible. And then they start pushing the rest of the players to be better.
It's closing the gap, I guess. People that have not tried it don't know. Yeah.
Yep.
So the next thing will be like Malaysia has set a pretty ambitious EV adoptions goals, right?
Yeah.
So how realistic are these targets given current infrastructure and consumer sentiment?
Well, I think that the targets are good when they were set because they were ambitious, but then they actually set, this is what we are planning to do rather than open-ended thing. Now, the 10,000 charging point target in the 2025 MyEVOC, we have been raising yellow flags on this since 2020 already, in terms of saying that, look, at this rate, you need to do this much. So the government has responded to try and streamline some of the processes, to also open up a tracking website even, and then this is very good of the government to do so. There's a site called MEVNet that tracks in almost real time, which is updated fairly frequently, the number of charging bays that are available, but we are still falling short. The other aspect is that, yes, these targets, the number of sales targets, until recently is a struggle for anybody to know exactly how many EVs have been sold in Malaysia or registered in Malaysia. Credit again to MOT, JPJ for publishing now very regularly updated a monthly figure of cars that are registered. So now we can keep track, and now we know that the trajectory we want is like this, but we are like this. So now what do we do to close the gap?
Yeah.
And we have an EV steering committee that is chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister that is supposed to look at these and figure out like what are the things that went wrong, what are the things that went right that has to be enhanced, and so on and so forth. In our opinion, this is great. There needs to be greater transparency of to what is discussed during those meetings, what sort of decisions are made, and what sort of input were given, so that then we and the users, we the industry, or not we lah, they the industry can also play a role in feeding back and work together to actually improve the process. Now, is it realistic? Can be if everybody works together.
In any revolutions, right? There will be someone that will suffer, and there will be someone that will make tons of money. So, what is your biggest concerns, about the EV transitions now?
Well, the biggest concern I think is not so much from a user perspective, but the wearing the hat of, let's say, if I was sitting in Putrajaya, I'd be concerned about the workers in those assembly plants. I know you have the Proton and Brodo, of course, you have huge factories, but then you also have the assemblers like Volvo, Mercedes, even Porsche now in Kulim, BMW in Kulim. What's going to happen to these guys who have been trained in the petrol combustion world, the diesel combustion world? Is there going to be a way to transition them to be well versed in EV assembly, in EV manufacturing? Because we can see the examples in Germany that they just require fewer people because in EV there are fewer moving parts. It's all pre-assembled and you just put the thing together. So what's going to happen? So these are, as you say, these may be the group of workers that we need to pay attention to. The first step ought to be that we need to have greater data transparency in terms of how many people are actually employed in this sector. How much money are they making on average? Because right now, some of the requirements, when I was in government, they talk about, they need to be high value workers. But some of these assembly plant workers are, okay, they're making decent enough money, but what's their career path? So it needs to be looked at from a human capital perspective. How do you help these guys transition, essentially? And it's also pretty good news that this transition is not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be very quickly, but I worry that there's not enough thinking being done now. You cannot wait until, there's a big problem only that we think about. Yeah, correct.
Too late.
Yes. Already, yeah. There's a kind of rude Chinese saying that, you know what I mean? That one. So you want to go and find your toilet. You know where the toilet is before you start.
You want to.
So there must be enough thinking here. I'm sure that, for example, parties within MITI like the MARI, the Automotive Research think tank the government owns, will be thinking about it together with maybe Ministry of Human Resource, get collaboration with the industry and figure out sincerely what are we going to do, because this thing is happening. It's not going to happen so soon, but the sooner we do it, the less painful. Okay. Yes.
So looking at the low carbon mobility blueprint by the government, right? You mentioned that adoption of EV in government and GLC fleets can be considered low hanging fruits compared to EV adoption by the private vehicle users. So do you think that the government and GLC have done enough to promote EV, or what can be done better?
Yeah, I think that's a question. That's a very good question, and I know that has been discussed at the EV steering committee. One of the challenges that they face in terms of government procurement for EVs is that they have these very long-term contracts that were already signed with service providers to provide the cars for the government.
Before this, I mean.
Correct. And so changing that from petrol to EVs takes renegotiation. And at that time also, there were not that many choices in terms of EVs. For example, what's a Proton Perdana equivalent of an EV, right? So it's lagging because there was a lot of work on discussions that need to be done for this. Some of the individual agencies have taken their own initiative to go and lease using their own budget EVs. But that also is not really that well coordinated. So that's the government side. Now, the government-linked companies, the government can sort of request them to do, but in the end, the government-linked companies have their own bottom line, they have their own budgets to look after. Now, having said that, for example, TNB has, in my mind, finally started to electrify their own fleet. You may see their pickup trucks, the one that respond to problems, the one that respond when you call 1554. They're starting to use EV trucks. But even then, before that, they were starting to use EV buses for their training purposes, for shuttling their staff. So they started small. And I heard internally also there's a move for them to eliminate I think some levels you get this petrol allowance. They're going to eliminate
to encourage
Correct. So
Chinese
then they're going to
EVs.
give probably like, kilowatt hours electricity, mileage allowance. So it's good that they're doing it, but this is only like what I heard. I mean, of course, their HR policies are the HR policies, but again, these are some of the GLC HR policies that can be modified, that can be improved to sort of encourage their staff to move to EVs.
Now, what will be the problems, with 100% of cars being EVs? Like 100%.
Yep. Okay. Firstly, though, I doubt whether 100% is ever going to be reached because there will be niche areas, especially in Malaysia, in the pendalaman where you still need to use combustion. The percentage will be lower. And when do we get to 100% is probably going to be like 20, 30 years from now. It's not going to be so soon because we still have a lot of cars, combustion cars that are on the road that are new. So most people don't change cars every 5 years. The cars will be on the road for like 10 years, maybe 15 years. So it's going to be a very gradual change. Some people are worried, can our electricity grid support it? Now, government is well aware of that, and the fact is that the scale of the energy demand from EVs is tiny compared with the energy demand from industry. Just recently, we talked about data centers being deployed in Malaysia. Those data centers would dwarf any new additional energy demand from EVs. But then there's also like this committee called the JPPPET sitting under the Ministry of Energy Transition that sits every 6 months or so, that's chaired by the minister, that actually takes a look at this. Okay, now projected, now this is where we are, this is how many power plants we have, this is our major transmission lines, this is the projected economic growth, and these are the new projects that are coming in, data centers, EVs and all that stuff. So they are continuously updating the projections and continuously updating the need for additional power. And also look at how do we decarbonize when we retire this coal plant, what's going to take its place, and so on and so forth. The discussion is happening. No need to worry. Now, the big part that needs to be addressed, though, is the part where that energy is generated here. It needs to be distributed and consumed here. Transmission lines are too, but distribution of that. So right now, I'm not sure how the distribution side of TNB, their performance is being measured. For example, if I was to apply for, let's say, 1 megawatt of power at this particular site, how long do they take to deliver that? Because they have to like lay new cable and all that stuff. Sometimes we can see examples in the UK, US, some states in the US, it can take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to do so. I guess my question is there a KPI that our regulator, the Energy Commission, is looking at from the standpoint of customer applies power, when does the customer get power? Right? And is that KPI, if it's there, is it easily, I would say, gained by the fact that the clock starts only when you key into the system? But when customer comes to apply, you don't key into the system yet, right? So you can game the system.
The lack of time.
Yeah, that's correct. So is there a KPI, something like that? And is that KPI tracked? And how do we prevent the same problems that are happening in UK and US to happen here? Because in the UK, you have these articles that say that the chargers are there, they're sitting there for a year, but no power because it takes too long for them to hook up. They call it a grid connection issue. We saw some of this happening already in Malaysia where there were 2 chargers in the Seremban R&R that has been in place for months, I think almost a year.
But still no
power. Yeah. So hopefully the KPIs are there, the KPIs are tracked such that then you can fine tune that process to have a higher performance from the distribution side, where there's enough power but getting it to where it's needed.
When we reach not 100%, maybe like 50 or even 20% of EV adoptions, right? What will happen to the current petrol stations? Because giving Malaysia, we are a petrol country. So what will happen?
Well, the petrol stations right now, majority of course are Petronas petrol stations, and then the next one is Shell, and so on and so forth. And a lot of them already are looking into installing EV chargers. So that's the good news. We see some countries that are super advanced, like Norway, where these petrol stations are 100% converted to EV stations. The first one in Malaysia is NGV station. I don't know if they remember this natural gas.
NGV?
There were very few of these NGV stations in Malaysia to start with, and there's one in, I think, around Kerteh, Terengganu, that is being converted.
So only EV charging stations, no more petrol.
We have some people who passed by and took pictures and shared it in our group, and it looks like, yes, the NGV station has been converted to petrol to EV charging stations. So over time, I think some of the stations will be 50-50, let's say, 30-70, some of them will be converted. So over time, gradually it will be converted. Again, the issue is that when you convert these petrol stations to EV charging stations, the power to the station needs to be upgraded. Can TNB or the utility cope with this new demand for power? So it's not how much power, it's getting the power that's needed.
I appreciate that we will have enough power, right? It's just that, as mentioned, getting it there.
Yeah.
So recently, Kasem has also entered the EV markets, by collaborating with NETA. So, what is your view on the impact that will happen to the traditional car dealership that don't sell any EVs car?
I think it will still stay. We noticed that even in other markets around the world that are more advanced than us, UK, again, Norway, US, the dealer model has its advantages, and because of that, they will still stay. Even in Malaysia, we see sometimes like Tesla will sell direct, right? So you buy your car, you go to the website, you just enter what you want, and then you enter your credit card, then you order your car as if you are going to Shopee. And then when the car is received, then it's less easy, because then you need to deal, if you want to change your number plate, you have to do it yourself. Then you want to sell your whole car, you have to do your postcom yourself. You have to get your insurance yourself. You have to get your loan yourself. So there are some users in Malaysia, this one too mafan for me. I'd rather go BYD, traditional dealer model. You go to the dealer, I want this car, then the salesman settle everything for you, right? You just write a check for the down payment, done. You don't have to think, like maybe 2 months later or 2 weeks later, boom, your car arrives. So some customers still see that value of having a sales advisor that takes care of all the details, because also, unfortunately, in Malaysia, our levels of buying a new car, just the loan, the JPJ, the insurance also, it's not that straightforward. Maybe that model will evolve to make the no dealer model more attractive, but over the next 5, maybe 10 years, I still see the dealer as the main. No problem.
The next question will be the garage, people that are fixing the car. So, moving forward, I appreciate there are more like EVs cars, right? So those that do not have any skill or knowledge about how to fix the EV cars, what will happen to them, or what they should do now?
Well, you can see already, like even in Malaysia, a few names have come up, like Exotic Mods, Gmat, Subang, even Mini Auto Hybrid and all that. These are the smart guys who know that EVs are coming. And so they are getting educated. They are moving ahead to acquire the tools, the software that is needed. So we can see like the smart workshop owners have already started to acquire the tools, the capabilities, the software that is needed. So those that, again, who don't want or cannot move, unfortunately, they will either have to do something else, or the government, if the government wants to protect them, offer them training on that. So again, it's a transition period, but good thing is that we have time to manage the transition.
Right, I think we just have to wrap things up now. Yeah. So if you guys have any further questions, regarding some EV on the EV industry as a whole, then I will drop Datuk Shahrol LinkedIn on the comment box. So just contact him or just leave your comments on this video. All right.
All right.
Thanks so much for your.
You're welcome.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.